before we get started, I feel like we should say PG. We gotta be PG. Is this?
Good.
I mean, I feel like we gotta be PG just with like the saying like Anakin Order 66 type of stuff. Like we're talking kid friendly,
Super kid friendly.
super kid friendly. Anyway, welcome to the Skeleton Crew podcast, which we are calling SCPC. We're gonna be diving into the episodes.
Don't come at us with that name, okay?
Yeah, we tried.
It's really, groundbreaking to just cut everything to initials.
Heck yeah, dude. Yeah, I mean, sometimes we overthink it, and like maybe that's the best for when it comes to like search engine optimization, SCPC. Hey, we got it.
Yeah.
We're good to go there. So obviously we're going to be diving into all things Skeleton Crew, the brand new series from Disney. And I'm curious, before we get into like the episodes, where are you at, like positivity wise, like ranking what you've seen so far?
So I'll give you coming into it, I was very excited. So I had high expectations. Okay, so we'll go excitement level coming into this before seeing anything. I'd say 8 out of 10.
Okay,
just because I was real hyped for it, real excited. I am currently at a 9.5 out of 10 right now on excitement level after these 2 episodes.
I feel like I needed like that R2 screaming noise to be like, Rah! Like, wow, like that's huge. Yeah,
we'll get into it more, but there's so many things they already have done with this that I'm like, thank you. Like the whole time I was watching these first 2 episodes, I was just like, thank you. This is all I've been asking for.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think I'm in the same boat as you. Like I'm a solid 9 right now. Yeah, I mean, let's get into it. First episode, right? Like, first off, this was where I was like, when we started the show, we're on a ship, and it gets taken over by pirates, and it gets kind of violent and intense. And I was like, kid show, what are we doing here?
It got taken over in the coolest way. Like they set it up pretty well by saying, there's a calm after the Empire has been defeated, and then talking about how pirates are just starting to run rampant. And it's like very, very much like a pirate siege. Like that ship blasting those tunnels into the other ship and breaking it open to create these tunnels for the pirates to come through. Like it seemed like 2 boats, 2 ships on ocean just fighting with like the drawbridges and the hooks and people swinging over. Like it was awesome.
And then they had like that wolf creature that came out.
Brutus?
Is that what his name was?
His name was Brutus, and I was like, immediately when I saw him freaking pointing his hands, I was like, who is this guy? He's my new favorite character. A werewolf in Star Wars?
Mm-hmm.
Are you kidding me?
So immediately the thing that I thought was really cool about like the beginning of the show was, for as much controversy as Star Wars is getting right now for like losing their way, you look at that scene and the lack of CGI and how much like practical effects and like costumes and just like puppets. I'm just like, dude, you guys are going back to where you started. I was like, okay, I'm in here. And
I love that.
Yeah, I mean, it was a really, really, really good intro. But I will tell you, I promised my daughter she could watch the show with me, and I was like, yeah, it's a kid's show, whatever. And then I didn't show it to her, and then I watched that first couple seconds, and I was like, yeah, I don't think I'm watching this with you.
See, I'd be okay. I'd be okay with my kids watching it so far, but mine are definitely a lot older than yours. So, but yeah, my daughter watched it with us. My daughter and my wife both watched it, and she made a comment as soon as it started. As soon as like the little blue text was going, she was like, I'm so excited for like a new Star Wars thing. Like she just like, I haven't seen a new Star Wars thing in a while. And I was like, I know. And I, like I said, kind of dropped the ball in watching things like Andor and things like that. But she was excited, and that was cool for me to see like the love of Star Wars that she has, and being able to share that with her was just awesome. So, but man, this captain, whoever he is, we didn't really see his face or anything, but he's not a great captain.
No. But again, I mean, he promised them that there was going to be gold on the ship, and I'm like, you can't predict. I mean, I guess they knew what type of freighter it was, and like typically they don't carry gold. But yeah, not a good captain. Immediately got, I assume, like marooned. I feel like you're kicked out.
There was something I had to turn the subtitles on for because I couldn't tell what he was saying. After Brutus walked in and picked up like the one credit and like turned around and held it up, and the captain sat there and he was like, and I was like, what? And I like rewound it, listened again. I was like, what is he saying? He said, mutiny then, is what he said. And I was like, mutiny. That makes so much more sense. And then he started fighting him and everything. But at the same time, I was like, bro, you led all these pirates to a bunch of them to their death for a single credit. Like,
yeah. But there's also the stuff on that ship you guys can sell. I saw some fruits. I saw some veggies. I don't know.
What a way too. Like, I don't know. Just like you always go back to even like A New Hope, where it's that hallway scene of the troops trying to defend against Darth Vader coming in, all the stormtroopers coming in. It's like it's one point of access. It's like you would think the people defending would have more of a what's the word, advantage, I guess.
Yeah.
But you could tell they weren't like soldiers.
Yeah, in theory, like if you have one choke point, you should be able to take out the whole crew. Like nobody's coming through there with a blaster. Just
yeah.
We've played COD. We know how that works. No, the other thing that I thought was really interesting was like in that blue intro thing that you said, where it was like the Empire has fallen and the New Republic has taken over, and but piracy's kind of taken over. And I was like, so was the Empire like curbing piracy? And I'm like, is that how we're justifying the Empire? Being like, well, at least we didn't have pirates. You know,
it's like there's always lesser of two evils type deal.
Yeah, like life is just a little bit less suckier over here. But
you just got to deal with the occasional pirates. I guess it kind of makes sense. Like pirates are going to kind of come back if there's a fall of an empire. That's interesting. I didn't even catch that.
If there's a void, I mean, someone's going to fill it. But so anyway, we go to this planet, which has yet to be revealed of the name and everything. And it was one of those where I was like, dude, are they doing Earth? Because it was so Earth-like. I saw the streets and the houses, and I was like, "Ooh, we going Earth!" Like, okay, let's bring this Star Wars universe here. But like, we see this whole futuristic world and like all this type of stuff. And the one thing I kept thinking was like, how far away are we from like this being our reality? Because if you would have asked like 12-year-old Bryant, it would have been like in 2 years. But now I'm just kind of like,
say by 2025, you're like, oh yeah, absolutely, that's happening. It's hard to say, because I feel like some of that stuff's starting to happen now. We're seeing kind of like automated vehicles and things like that now. They're not perfected, but getting there. We're seeing a lot more. I think Tesla was doing a lot of like those robots and things like.
Yeah, we got those Waze cars here in Austin that drive themselves, and it's wild.
We're getting close. Let's say. I'm going to say for that, which seemed like everybody's adopted it. Let's say 50 years, I'm going to say.
Hopefully we're still doing the podcast by then. I'll be 74.
Just be like, I told you it's going to happen.
Should have stopped at Andor. We're going to be like the two old guys from Muppets still talking about Star Wars.
Welcome to Nerf Podcast episode. Talk about movie 34.
Yeah. One of the things that I will say, and I'll let you jump in, but like my favorite part about the show so far is that the Star Wars lore exists inside of the show, right? We see the main character and he's on his bed playing with Jedi lightsaber action figures, and then he's reading Jedi stories on his tablet. And I was like, dude, yes. Now, like I've always wondered, like, what does the other rest of the galaxy think? And like to think that there's kids out there wanting to be Jedi. It's just like I wanted to be a Jedi. I loved it, man. It was such a cool little tie-in.
You saw in the Star Wars universe kids pretending to have lightsaber fights.
Yeah.
Just like we as kids would have. Like it was incredible watching suburban Star Wars. And as I was watching the whole thing, I was like, this is all I've wanted. Show me other stories that take place in the Star Wars universe that don't have to revolve around the same Jedi or same, storyline or the Skywalkers or anything like that. Like it's like there's a whole vast universe. Show me a story that's different, and that's what this exactly is. And that's why it was the whole time I was smiling, because I was like, this is all I wanted. And at this point we haven't gotten super far into the story, and it wasn't super exciting by that point other than the opening scene, but it was like I was interested, and it was like watching any other movie but just set in Star Wars. You saw the other characters walking their dogs that were characters you've seen before and other creatures you've seen before, so it was just awesome. The schools, I mean, to chime in, if I had a droid teaching me all day, I'd fall asleep. There's no way.
Yeah. Although you saw later on one of the characters like hacking the droid, and I was like, "Can you hack the droids at school?" I was like, "That'd be cool."
Ooh.
I mean, we pranked some teachers back in the day, but it's like if you could like hack them to be like, "Oh no, we're not supposed to do that."
You failed this test. I'm sorry, memory wipe.
Yeah,
you give me an A. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, no. Then so the main character, or one of the main characters that we get to meet, is Wim, and then we're introduced to his best friend, or their best friend, Neil. Which Neil, I just want to go on record. Episode 1 of the show, first episode of SCPC. If Neil dies, this will be the worst Star Wars show ever created, and I don't know if I'm going to continue the podcast.
How can you even say that?
You want Neil to die?
No,
okay.
Absolutely not, dude. Yeah. Neil is probably, without a doubt, if not the most, one of the most adorable Star Wars characters ever.
Yeah,
like probably he's right up there with Grogu. Like, wow, just he's so, his little lines, his personality, he's just adorable looking. Like, yeah, it's hard not to love that character. And I was like, I feel the exact same way. I think we'll say it right now. If it happens, we're done. Sorry, guys.
Yep. Yeah. No, do not touch Neil.
Oh man.
And so Wim and Neil basically go to school. We get to see them interacting with like campus life and awkward kid stuff. And Neil's got a crush on a girl in school too, which was really cute. And it like comes up as like a subplot later on in the movie. But like you just see these kids being kids, right? They're not shooting blasters, launching lightsabers. They're just kids. And I think that's what we've kind of been asking for. Is like, put away the action, just tell us a story that's character driven in the Star Wars universe. I think it's really cool.
Yeah, we saw a couple other characters as well. We have KB and what was the other girl's name? Fern. Yeah. I was saying it backwards. I was like Nerf. Nope, Nerf. That's not right. Fern, Wim, Neil, and KB. So KB is a cool character too. She had that crazy Cyclops Star Trek visor, whatever the heck that is.
That was exactly what I thought when I saw it, and I was like, ooh, the Trekkies ain't going to be happy about this.
Thought the same thing. I was like, oh man, I don't know much about Star Trek whatsoever, but I was just like, huh, interesting. I feel like that was almost like a nod.
It's funny you say that, because I don't think I know very much about Star Trek at all. Somebody told me that Captain there's like Kirk. These fuzzy monster creatures that are like balls. And I was at Comic-Con, and I was like, are you effing with me? PG podcast. Are you frigging me? And I was like, there's no way that there's just like a fuzzy ball creature. And they're like, no, it's a thing. And they took me to the Star Trek booth, and like, sure enough, there's like fuzzy ball creatures that are like monsters. And I was like, all right.
Wow.
We've got Ewoks. You guys take those. Like, Anyway, Skeleton Crew.
It's back to Skeleton Crew. You know what I thought was interesting too was sometimes, we have grown up. Me and you have known each other a long time. Back in high school, there were certain catchphrases and sayings, things like that. And obviously your kids are a little younger, but I have a daughter that's in high school. My son is, end of elementary, and they come home with some weird sayings, some weird words that I'm sure other parents on here can relate, don't know what they mean.
Talking Riz.
Yeah, all Fleet. That. Skibbity. Mewing, all these other things, and we have a new one now, a Star Wars one.
Which one?
Totally wizard.
Totally wizard. Hell yeah. That's how I would describe the first episode, bro. Totally wizard.
When Wim was talking to Fern, he's like, I saw your bike. Totally wizard. And I was like, oh, okay, all right, I'm gonna use that from now on. That's so wizard. That's
it was a great one, man. Yeah. Go ahead.
I was gonna say it's funny because people say like that's all Jedis are, like space wizards. Like, so the fact that they have that differentiation in Star Wars of a wizard, I thought was funny.
Yeah. Ooh, I didn't even think about that.
Right?
We could see wizards because we got witches.
Different from Jedi.
That's dope.
Not sure how, but different.
So we get this whole thing, right, where like they're in class and then you get like the old trope of like, oh, you guys got a massive test coming over tomorrow, and they're like, oh, wasn't studying for it, right? So they get into like this whole cameo arc, and the next day they wake up, they're one of them misses the bus. I think it was Win. Yeah, Wim misses the
Whim.
bus. So he's like, don't worry, jumping on my speeder bike. He's like, I'm taking a shortcut. And let me tell you, shortcut must have a completely different definition in that galaxy than ours, because I feel like if he would have just followed the bus, he would have got there right on time, because he's cutting through the woods, dodging boulders, almost running off a cliff. And then as he tumbles down, he comes across a capsule that's buried underground. And he's like, it's a Jedi temple, which understandably, I think I would think the same thing. Jedi temple.
Especially with him being so obsessed with Jedis and everything. I want to say, you know, Neil's a real one, trying to hold it down. You know, he's like, hey, what if somebody's trying to take a shortcut, trying to get here real fast, and needs to take this assessment? And the droid's like, keep your mouth shut. We're gonna do the test soon. And I'm like, man, Neil's trying, man. Neil's trying to hold it down for his boy.
What if Neil becomes the Jedi? He's got like the tusk and.
I love Neil so much until, you know, I said he's probably the cutest thing ever, until I saw his little brother. Tulu,
baby.
The little toddler Neils. I was like, oh my God, there's even cuter somehow.
Yep. I'm trying to figure out what species it is real quick.
There you go. So as you're doing that, we see, you know, Wim had found that capsule, got in trouble by his father. His father kind of came and I'm assuming had to talk to the principal or somebody. And then obviously Fern was there too. And they were kind of talking and having their interactions. And that was when he said the totally wizard. And his dad just seemed to have seemed very disconnected, very, very obsessed with work. I'm not sure if dad is single. If mom had passed, they didn't really touch much on where mom is in this scenario, or if maybe Wim's adopted. I was trying to figure out the relationship there because he just, I don't know, he seemed kind of disconnected in a weird way.
Yeah, it was one of those that I watched the show and then my wife was like, oh, how was it? And I was like, questionable parenting. Like that would be kind of the whole thing, is that like I look at how like detached this guy was, and like, you know, his kid has issues at school and then he's like, oh, I'm so mad. And I'm like, anytime my kid gets in trouble or anything like that, I'm like, okay, did I do something to cause that? Like, I mean, that's at least the way that I think. It's like, okay, let me give him the benefit of the doubt. Like, why? Like, I've been working long hours, blah, 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 blah. But, like, dad was just disconnected, man. Like, and it was a little weird, but it added to the plot. I mean, it made sense.
It made sense where you get Wim looking for adventure. It's almost like he just feels like he has to entertain himself, and he doesn't seem like a bad kid. I mean, he was trying to study for the assessment the night before. He was trying to do the right thing, and you can tell he aspires for something greater. He wants to help people, all that stuff. So, you know, just kind of a maybe unfortunate situation. I mean, obviously, I imagine being a single parent would be very, very tough, you know, feeling like you have to provide and maybe you are working more hours than usual. So it's hard to say. We say bad parenting, but maybe, you know, maybe we don't know the whole story. So
True. Apologies to Wim's dad.
Sorry, I forget his name. It said his name at one point, but it was with a W as well. Wheeler, something like that.
Gunter? No.
It was a W. I made a comment. I was like, "Oh, W and Wim."
I'm looking it up right now. Carry on.
So after that, dad. We get Wim going to Neil's house to tell him about this. Wendell and Wim. See, we get Wim going to Neil's house, tell him about this amazing Jedi temple that he found, and we get this funny little scene where he climbs up on the moonlight sunroof, and Neil's just bathing in this massive tub. By the way, gotta imagine his parents are large because that tub was huge. He scared him, and then he's like, "Hey, you know, tell me, you know, you're gonna ask me how the assessment went?" And he's like, "How'd the assessment go?" "I think it went good." And he was all like, "That's good." He's like, "Can we get to this Jedi temple thing now?" So they go out and check out this Jedi temple, and obviously he had made a comment to his dad about that's what he had found, and Fern kind of overheard. So when they get there, this hilarious scene where Wim tells Neo to hold this rope, and he's like, "All right, I'm gonna rappel down, okay? You hold this." And he's like, "All right, I got you." And then he just like flails himself, and they both go tumbling down.
Oh yeah, great scene.
And he's like, "I thought you had me." And he's like, "Your bones are too heavy." Like,
yeah,
all of Neil's little one-liners just made me laugh so hard.
Yeah, no, it was, again, takes me right back to like Goonies, I can't really.
Oh yeah.
You might be able to say better than me because I haven't watched Stranger Things, but like,
Oh,
is this very Stranger
what?
Things?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I've never seen
Stranger
it.
Things is a little darker, I'd say, but
Oh, okay.
yes, the very very much the same. Where it's kids and put in adult situations, like just very very much around the same. You've seen Goonies, right? I thought you were
Oh
gonna say
yeah.
you haven't seen Goonies. I was gonna
Yeah,
say
no,
it,
I've
bro.
seen Goonies, never seen
Okay.
Stranger Things. Yeah,
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 very very similar.
okay.
But yeah, we get to this quote unquote Jedi temple, and Fern and KB are trying to do claimsies on it, which somehow they won. Somehow they talked the boys into digging it out for them too.
Yeah.
So we get this little scene where they're digging it up, and then this panel seems to be revealed, and KB checks it out and realizes that it's a powerable door that opens up. Dun dun dun! Mystery, intrigue.
Hell yeah. And this is where I think I fell in love with this series because like you get to see like all the characters have like their own personalities and like you're not really that far into the show. I think the first episode was like 45 minutes or something like that. But you're still invested in each one of them. Like you already can kind of sense how they're feeling about the scene and like walk into the ship, or walk into the temple, you assume, but then you find out it's a ship and they're going through these corridors and trying to turn the power back on and there's like infighting and ends up like Wim goes to the cockpit unknowingly and like they're over the walkie-talkies and the girl's like, "Don't touch anything," and he's like, "Whatever, I can touch whatever I want," and then hits a button and it turns the ship on, dude. And he's like, "Oh no!" And then he literally runs back to the spot where he left them, and then he lays down on the ground. He's like, "I don't know what happened. I didn't touch anything." I was just like, dude,
Like this whole situation with kids is just so, because it's exactly what a kid would do.
yeah,
Like you're talking, and first off, it's like they're trying to get the power on, and they're like, "There's something big and heavy. Let's just smack it."
yeah,
When in doubt, just smack it with something heavy, and then that works. And then, like as he's talking, she's like, "Don't touch anything." He's just staring at this giant green flashing button, and it's like, you're a kid. You see a giant green flashing
oh
button,
yeah.
you're gonna press it. Would you have pressed it?
I'm 34 years old. I would have pressed it.
I would.
Yeah, 100% would have pressed it, man.
I would have pressed it too.
Yeah,
Yeah, but that was the whole culmination of it is when he comes back and he's like, "I didn't touch anything." It's like, what? Yes, you did.
yeah,
So we get this scene where this ship, now they realize, is a starship, which I thought was super cool because it was clearly like upside down.
yeah.
And my daughter had pointed out, she's like, "Everything's upside down," and I was like, "Ah." And so then
That's
it
cool.
like kind of writes itself, and then we see Wendell. Is that what you said his name was? Wim's dad catches them flying off into space, and we get
As a
blast.
dad, can you imagine being in that situation?
As I was sitting there thinking that, I was like, my kids going into space right now,
Yeah,
gone forever. Like, what am I supposed to think at that point? Especially because this planet didn't seem very like aware of outer space.
yeah.
Because as they were flying up, the kids kept saying, "We're going to crash into the barrier." Like it's almost like they had no idea what space was. Because even when they got into space, they saw the stars and like, "What is all this?" And they're like, "I think it's other planets." Like they just had no idea.
Yeah.
So that's what's interesting too. Is like, do they just not know? Are they just so sheltered?
Yeah, I'm very intrigued because there's some stuff that comes up in episode 2 that I think is really kind of adds to that I'm like, ooh, okay. There's a lot of moving parts here that I'm really kind of a fan of. So again, telling a Star Wars story that has nothing to do with the Skywalkers. It's like I'm all in. Let's go.
Yeah, and the transitions in this show have been really, really great too. Like especially the end of that first episode where they just blast off into light speed,
Yeah,
and then you just see the outside ship just go away, and it's just the stars, and it's just quiet, and then you just start seeing the credits. I was like, "Oh my god, that was awesome!"
mm-hmm.
And like, what a way to end it! Like, I was so like, if I had to wait a week to watch the next episode, I've been pissed.
Yeah, I got to assume that that's why they let 2 episodes out because it was like,
Yeah.
okay, I need this closure right now.
Yeah. It was awesome. I was so hyped for the next one. And you had texted me. You were like, "Hey, you ready to record tonight?" And I'm like, "I just finished this first episode. I'm so ready." Like I was so excited.
Oh yeah, no, it was legit such a refresher when it came to Star Wars content, and it was just like, okay, we're in. Like I'm into this show. And what's interesting is that my daughter actually caught like the tail end of this episode, And I was like, okay, I think you can chill. Like, I think we can. The scary stuff has passed by, and she seemed to enjoy that part. But no, I mean, it was I loved it, man. And it was one of those. It was an easy click to the next episode. Which, again, I mean, that's the whole argument with content these days. That's like, if you look at how shows are made today versus how shows were made in the '90s, you didn't have like these cliffhanger moments at the end of every episode where you're like, I gotta see another episode. And you click, 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 and they accomplished it in this show.
Yeah, I was very frustrated because before I even started the 2 episodes, I saw that the first one was like 49 minutes, I think, and the second one was only like 36. And I was like, okay, it makes sense that the first episode's longer. So then as the first episode ended, I was like, it's already been 49 minutes? Like, oh my gosh, like what the heck? And then in my head, I was like, the next one's even shorter? That's awful. Like I was like, when those thoughts cross your mind, that's, you're enjoying it. So
yeah, no, it's true. Yeah, so that was the end of episode 1, and then we move into episode 2, which literally picks up exactly where we left off. The kids are screaming in hyperspace. Just like literally the exact same scene.
Transitions is so great, dude. I'm saying. Yeah. We get to meet a new droid, which we saw kind of at the tail end of the first episode, kind of awaken. New droid called SM-33.
Yep.
And I thought it was funny because, like, being the whole pirate theme, it seemed like he was supposed to have like a patch eye with like one of his eyes missing.
Did you catch the pirate name?
No.
Shmi.
Smee. It hit me right as you was. Oh my gosh. That's hilarious.
Yeah, when I was doing it, I was like, "That's a really interesting name," and I was like, "Oh."
As I was saying the numbers, I was about to ask you, what do you think that stands for? That's so funny.
Yeah, no, it was a great little game, and plus,
wow,
thank you Disney for giving us more droids that absolutely kick ass. Like this was such a great droid, like an old man, like pirate.
We'll get into that, man. Oh man, yeah. Anyways,
I'm already going to this scene. I'm like, I got nope.
It's
we gotta
such
wait.
a great scene. So before we get there, we got Smee. I just want to call him Smee now. That's so great. That's so great. I'm so happy you got that. That's so cool. Smee's trying to look for the captain. Trying to figure out what's going on, and then Fern has this clever idea to. I don't know if it's clever, but she's like, "I'm the captain now. Basically, I murdered." Your captain. I spilled his gut, like saying all these down. I was like, whoa. And even Wim's like, what are you doing? Like, holy cow. But Smee respected it. He's like, you don't seem like you'd be able to do that. But he's like, all right, I guess so. I don't see the captain anywhere.
Yeah, no, Fern, first episode, it was very much in the sense of like, who's going to be my favorite character? But as like we get into episode 2, Fern has definitely, I'm like, okay, Fern's my favorite character right now.
I love all of them in their own ways. Like I think, like you were saying, all the kids have their own personality traits that are awesome. They remind me a little bit of like the Ninja Turtles.
Yeah,
kind of, where you got like one that's funny and lovable and kind of out there. You got one that like is kind of like a rough and tough person.
Yeah,
and then you got another one that's like super smart. So, and then like a leader.
I see that for sure.
A little bit.
Who's the Donatello? Do we meet them at the end of the episode?
KB's Donatello.
KB's Donatello. Okay.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
I guess where it kind of falls off is Leonardo.
Hey.
That's the leader.
You never know. We might be
maybe Wim becomes Leo.
We might be writing off Neil, man. Neil might be a secret kung fu fighter, dude.
He just his little comments all the time. Anything like even when later this episode. Oh God, see, okay, we're getting ahead of ourselves. Fern takes a role of captain. Yep. She's like, "Hey, take us home," and he's like, "Okay, where's home?" And she's like, "At Atten," and he's like, "No clue what you're talking about."
Yeah.
And she's like, "That's where we live," and he's like, "Well, show me," and he just like points to the stars, like, "Yeah, okay, buddy."
Yeah. This was such a great scene too, because it like captured like feeling lost. But also, like, as a kid, all you know is, like, it sounds really stupid to say this, but, like, all you know is what you know, right? And, like, what you know is so massive to you. So it's like, if you say your street address, you assume everybody knows my street address. And then, like, you say your planet, you assume everybody, like, could you imagine being taken out in space to, like, where you live? Earth. What the hell's Earth?
Have you ever gotten lost before? Like, legitimately lost? Even if it was, like, 5-10 minutes?
No.
So it's hard to say with that. I'm trying to think if I ever have.
Yeah.
I think I have as an adult, but it was like something where I was able to kind of figure it out decently quick.
I did go without my cell phone today, and I felt pretty lost. I felt very like, I don't know, detached.
Like, how do they do this? Like,
yeah, like what if I need to get a hold of my wife? How would I get a hold of my wife?
My mom said that. She said she forgot her phone. She went somewhere, and I talked to her later, and she's like, she goes, I don't even know what I had did before. And I'm like, you're different. Like, you lived through not having a cell phone and going places. She goes, yeah, I know. You just went places. You didn't talk to anybody. You didn't text anybody. You didn't call anybody, say where you were. You didn't have Google Maps or anything. Like, you just went where you knew. And I was like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
She's like, so it was horrible.
So you have a similarity to being lost you're going to get into?
Briefly. I was going to say, one time I was driving to California, and California is crazy enough as it is, but I was headed there, and I was probably, I think I was 18 or 19. And I had like MapQuest, like printed out directions. Like I didn't have a cell phone that could do that yet. So,
which, hold on, since this is a PG show and we're talking to kids, explain MapQuest a little more in detail. What you had to do with MapQuest?
You would go to www.mapquest.com, type in an address, and it would print off what Google does for you now, directions on where to go. But it would just give you the directions, like drive 0.56 miles.
Yep.
Or 5.6 miles, turn left on this street. So that's what you had, was just a list of things. You didn't have this little arrow telling you where to go, when to turn. So you had to kind of read and be prepared. And I always had to hit like the odometer thing. If it would say like 29 miles, I would hit the odometer to 0 and then wait till it got close to 29 and I'd look for my exit. So I was doing that. And somehow I took a wrong turn. I missed an exit and I was panicking because I'm like now in your phone, it'll reroute you.
Yeah.
You can't reroute on a piece of paper. Like I was like, oh gosh, where do I go? And I still don't know how I got back on the right road. Wow. But all of a sudden I just realized I'm on the right road. And I was like, oh, thank goodness. So, but I would say those 3 minutes where I was panicking, I was like, I don't know where I am. Like, I'm lost.
Yeah.
And I was by myself. Like, it wasn't even, I could share the lostness with anybody. I just felt truly lost.
Yeah. No, it's wild. And I think that they captured it so great in the show where these kids are just like, shoot, and he's like, I'll take you to a pirate port. And they're like, no, don't do that. And then they're like, no, take us to a pirate port. Like, someone will find our place.
I don't even think he said pirate port. I think he just said we need to go to a place that's safe.
Oh,
and secluded, because
that is the opposite of
his
where
mind.
Went.
He's like, well, to him, they're pirates.
True.
So he's assuming we got to go somewhere that isn't where, I guess, the Empire or the Republic can find them. So that's where he took them, somewhere safe for pirates.
Do you think we'll find out who the captain was?
I think so.
Okay.
I'm curious if we're thinking. So let's veer off course a little bit here. Do we think that? Okay, we'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
Do we think the captain's still alive?
Yes.
Or do we think this ship is that old?
Well, okay, sorry.
It was under some dirt.
The captain from the beginning of the movie, I do think is still alive.
Yes. Okay.
The ship that's under dirt, no, I think we're pretty far from.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, anyways, Fern takes captain. They go to the spaceport, which was super cool. Super cool seeing, like, again, very pirate themed Star Wars. Like, I loved it. And that was where it really reminded me of the Goonies, because the Goonies also was very pirate themed with One-Eyed Willie.
Yep.
And main characters is looking for adventure and everything. So I already had the sense that it was like that style of movie, but it really truly felt like the Goonies.
Oh, for sure.
During the second episode, because of all the pirate stuff. So they get taken by this crazy little troll monkey wizard thing, whatever he is, gnome. And so they go across, and Wim's dad had given him some credits for lunch money, and he'd given him like these bunch of little gold credits essentially. And we find out that they are seemingly worth way more than he thinks, because when he's handing them out, people are like freaking out over them.
Oh yeah, that little monkey dude was like,
he took off like stoked. So now we see what looks like a brothel, I guess we would say.
Yeah.
We
PG.
see some standard, pirate-esque places, where people can get a drink if they're thirsty, and some food. We see a couple humorous lines.
That was where, this was a line that cracked me up, because like the guy's like, "Oh, I'll have what he's having," and then he cracks open a creature and it like pours its guts out. And Neil's like, "Oh no, I'm good," and then it just pours out, and he's like, "Oh," and I'm like, I've totally been in that situation so many times.
Because whatever he had before he cracked that, it looked pretty good.
Yeah.
Like I was like, I'd eat that. It was like a little pasta dish or something.
Yeah. And you gotta also think these kids probably aren't familiar with death, right? They just saw like a little like sentient creature just get killed in front of them, and they're like,
That's true.
Yeah.
Very true. So then Wim pays with these credits because the guy says, pay up. And then when he hands it to him, he's like, this isn't enough, because he just had no idea the currency or anything like that. So then we learn that these are Old Republic credits.
Right.
In like mint condition. What's up with that?
That's where we start getting the mystery.
So
planet's not on the trajectory. Money that hasn't been seen forever. What is going on here?
The girls and boys were kind of split at this point. This part where the boys are getting some food and the whole learning of the Old Republic credits, and then the girls were being talked to by this
lady
alien,
of the night.
Yeah, that basically was saying she was trying to help them, saying this is a place with pirates. This is not safe for you guys. Where are you from? And they say at, and she's like, no, really, where are you from? And so that's where they also learn. She's like, you're from this lost planet that is filled with lost treasures.
Yeah.
And so then you're like, what? And so now they're confused. Like, what lost treasure? Like, what's going on? So it adds more of the mystery to where they are, why nobody can seem to find where they're from.
Yep. And so Neil and Wim cause a fight, huge hubbub over the money, and then they all kind of like reunite, and they're like running back to the ship. And Fern pulls out a gun. I don't know where she got the gun.
That's what I was going to say. Where'd she get this from?
Yeah. She pulls out the gun, starts defending the boys, and then my boy, Shmi, comes in, double fists.
Did you see what he did?
What part? I saw him like punch a guy through the ceiling.
I felt like he did the Henry Cavill like arm reload thing.
Oh! I'm not kidding. That, but now, when he was walking up, I know what you're talking about. Yes.
He was like, step away from my captain, and then it shows him and he's like, and I was like, he did it.
That's so awesome. Now that I know exactly what you're talking about, and he did do it.
Oh my gosh.
Oh god, it was such a great scene too.
Yeah, I don't know if it was intentional, but that's what it reminded me of, and I was like, incredible. Like I was so excited, and then he did work. He did work on these pirates.
Big time, dude. Big time.
Oh
he punched
gosh.
dude through the ceiling and just
Dude was burning. Like he was messing them up. Messing them up.
Did everything that you would want a robot to do in the Star Wars universe, man. Like that's the type of robot that I want if we get to the future.
Dude. Man. Freaking Smee. And then we see Smee get blasted.
I would like to take
Brutus.
a second to talk about this.
Go ahead. Floor is yours.
Okay. We get the single-handedly coolest droid since Andor in this movie. We get SM-33 Smee, and he's kicking butt. And I'm like, oh, dude, this is my favorite character moving forward. We're going. We got this. And then they kill him. How are you going to kill this guy in one episode and give C-3PO 9 movies?
Is he dead, though? Is he dead? That's the question.
God, I don't know.
It seemed pretty final at first for me, but then they made a comment where they're like, we got to get Smee. We got to repair him. So I was like, oh, okay.
Okay.
Maybe he's not.
There might be hope, but if it's not, that's why it's not a 10. That's why I gave it a 9.
I felt the same way as soon as it happened. I was like, what? No. I was like, what the heck, man?
Yeah.
You bring this freaking awesome droid and then what?
But it also does kind of capture that thing that Game of Thrones did really well, where it's like nobody's safe.
Yeah.
Right? So like you kill off the main character in the first season and you're like, what? Like you kill off one of the coolest droids and you're like, okay, maybe you might kill Neil. Maybe this show might end with Neil. Just don't do it. Don't touch Neil. Do not touch Neil.
Yeah, I really hope nothing is final with that. I hope that they are able to repair him. We'll see what happens. But they get thrown in the brig, which was hilarious because they're like, what's the brig? And then we get another one of Neil's classic lines where they throw him down and Wim's laying on the ground and he's like, you probably shouldn't lay on that dirt.
Yeah.
The dirt looks really dirty. Just the lines he says, I was like, I love this kid.
Yeah. And then so the key is very much like Pirates of the Caribbean, like hung across the room, and they're like, we can't reach it. And then a cloaked figure comes from the back, and he's like, it's not the distance. I've got this. And he sticks his hand out, uses the magical force, and pulls the key to him. And then Wim is like, you're a Jedi. And it was so great. Such a great scene, man. And that's where we end. Like
he hushes them. He hushes them. And then it ends. How are you going to do that?
And we got to wait another week.
I screamed audibly. And I was like, no, because I knew this what was happening when it was ending. I was like, why are you ending like that? Like, I was like, and again, that shows me that I am fully into the show, because I was, even my wife was like, what are you saying no for? Like, who is that? And I was like, it's Jude Law. And she's like, yeah, but who is he? I was like, I don't know. It's the first time I watched the show. I don't know. And she goes, why'd you scream? I was like, because I knew the episode was gonna end. I was pissed.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it was one of those that I was like, okay, you're getting me into the next episode, but I'm like, I have so many more questions. Some of them, the questions I got, is Jude Law the captain from the beginning of the movie? Is that
that's
the same
what I was
guy?
wondering.
And why didn't he just use his Jedi powers back then to get out of the entire thing? And okay, number 2, is he going to train some people to be a Jedi? Like, are we going to get Neil? Are we going to get Wim? Is Fern going to be a Jedi? Like, are we going to like? Can't wait.
For the first question, is he a Jedi?
I think so.
You think so?
Yeah.
You think a Jedi could get captured and thrown in a brig, and what?
Yeah, because my like the way I thought of it, I was like, oh, what if that key wasn't always there? Like, what if the guard just like put it there, and he's like, oh, I can get that. But I don't know. Maybe he's not.
It seems silly that they would have a key there if they know that guy's a Jedi. Maybe they don't know he's a Jedi.
Yeah, maybe that's why he was
a Force user. Maybe.
But then the other thing that Jedi. I really have a lot of questions about is at Adam. Like, why has this place been deleted off the maps? You know, with the ship crashing. I mean, when did that ship crash? What? Like, there's just so many questions I have about this show, and I'm like, okay, I'm very, very, very high on where I'm at right now, and I'm like, let's go, give me another episode. Which new episode's coming, and I cannot wait.
Yeah, it's been super intriguing so far, and I think that's what's exciting about it, is that there's a lot of questions that we want answered.
Yep.
And they're doing a really good job of teasing little bits here and there of things and setting up new storylines, and again, the familiarity of the Star Wars universe, but also showing us something different. So this is exactly what I was hoping for with this show, is that it was a new adventure and showing us different things, but showing us situations that we not situations, but scenes, areas that we've not seen before, characters living in this universe that know about things that we've seen and grown to love in Star Wars, but have not seen before. So
yeah,
it's exciting. I'm super excited.
Yeah, it does feel like a love letter to like the Star Wars universe, because it's just like, hey, we're gonna create a cool show that's Star Wars themed, it's Star Wars adjacent. And I'm in, man. Like, I think they did a great job with the first 2 episodes, and I hope that they can carry it through for the remaining 6. But one thing while you were talking that I popped up on my screen, and I was like, ooh, we gotta talk about this. So Neil isn't CGI.
Really?
Yeah,
that's practical effect.
He's a puppet. The only part that's CGI are his eyes. So the
I was going to ask
actor
about that,
has to wear the hat and wear the costume.
That's awesome. That's so cool.
Yeah,
that's good. Though. I mean, like
Neilcast.
You said, that's what we call it, Neilcast. No, I'm really excited to see where this goes. I'm curious. Do we know if this has a season 2 already in plan, or is this supposed to be a standalone series?
I don't know if there's one that been. I don't think season 2 has been announced. We just got announced Ahsoka 2. And then Mando just wrapped, and I think Disney's probably just waiting to see how this one performs. Which
I'm hoping.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. I
was going to say, I'm hoping this leads to more like-minded projects and ideas, because I've been enjoying this so far.
Yeah, I would love to see Disney see the success of this and say, okay, how can we expand this universe? And not even that. I mean, like, if it's as simple as, like, they sat down in a board meeting and they're like, make the Goonies and Stranger Things as a Star Wars movie. What other movies can you make that way? Like, what else can you look at and be like, all right, how can we make this version of Star Wars but have it be like this?
Footloose.
Hell yeah, bro! I'm telling you, a Footloose Star Wars movie, but pod racing. We don't race on this. I'm all in.
I didn't even tell you. My mom was listening to the Scruffy Nerf podcast, and she was like texting me as she was listening to it. And she's like, "I'm pretty sure Brian's just referencing Footloose here." Before she got to the part where you said that it was that, and then she texted me like 5 minutes later. She's like, "Never mind. You said that it was Footloose."
Oh yeah, 100% just ripped Footloose, man. But
so
no,
good.
I mean, overall, I'm super hyped on where we're at on this, and I can't wait to see it expand and see more characters and see how they grow it. And this is where I want to be. I want to have a lot of questions in the air and pull me into next week's show. So.
And excitement. I'm excited for the next show. I will be watching this next show on Tuesday, and I'm so excited for it.
Hell yeah, man. I am there too. So obviously, as always, please let us know your thoughts in the comment section, and wherever else you're watching this, please just follow us on social media, over on the TikToks and over on the other YouTube side. Definitely give us a follow over there. And then actually one last note before we finish. So as we're doing these shows and focusing in on like specific topic shows, kind of like Skeleton Crew or Andor or Ahsoka, the weekly Scruffy Nerf Herder show will take a pause, and then once we're done with that show, we'll come back with the Scruffy Nerf Herder podcast just to produce our, to secure our sanity at that.
Good way to put it.
Yeah, so without further ado, obviously this will be going up here, and then the next episode is coming up on Tuesday, and you'll be having your Skeleton Crew podcast coming out shortly right after that. So appreciate everybody's support, and until next time, may the Force be with you.
You're my boy, Neil.